So regulators have to look at what are the short-term benefits, but really also the medium-term, long-term impacts on the financial system. And that's a very hard job because often people can see the short-term benefits. But how does that play out over 5, 10, 15 years? There are two aspects to this. One is, as a regulated bank, in an industry where regulators give us our license to operate, they are really critical stakeholders for us. And, as much as we focus on customers and also our shareholders and our governance committees, regulators are really important stakeholders. I've personally got a lot of sympathy for regulators. Of course, there's enormous desire by organizations, both mature companies, but also startups, to be at the cutting edge of innovation. But as regulators, they have to think about the medium-term and long-term impacts of how regulation is going to impact particularly the financial system. And that's a very hard job because often people can see the short-term benefits. But how does that play out over 5, 10, 15 years? And what we've seen in a lot of subsegments, particularly peer-to-peer lending in China, in the first couple of years, the short-term benefits were clear. There was enormous access that millions of people got to products they otherwise wouldn't have received. But over a 3 to 5 year period, you're starting to see many of those peer-to-peer lenders run into trouble. So regulators have to look at what are the short-term benefits, but really also the medium-term, long-term impacts on the financial system. Extremely difficult to predict. Extremely difficult to look at both the intended consequences, but often the unintended consequences of how innovation will change not just customer access, but customer behavior and also market participant behavior. And so they have a tough job. Understandably, they're pretty cautious around making some of these regulatory changes. And as we all know, sometimes when regulators open the door, it's incredibly difficult to shut it. So I think there is a trend of obviously innovation impacting financial services. Clearly, there will be a trend of regulators embracing innovation and seeing how that can benefit consumers and broader market participants, but I think it's going to take time. So there are two pillars to that strategy. One is digital banking, which is increased access, but also financial literacy, which is increased awareness for our customers. And I think particularly in emerging markets, where literacy levels are lower and financial literacy levels are particularly low, and also you have a number of people who are outside of the banking system and moving into the banking system for the first time, you have an obligation as a financial institution to make sure people come onto your platform through great innovation, but also that you are able to help them understand the products and the risks they're taking on by assuming new financial products that they haven't previously.